All right, so I was about to go to the gym this morning and do my workout, and I wake up and see this news and knew I had to do a video right away here. Jamahal Hill relinquishes his UFC title after suffering a ruptured Achilles in a basketball game. My goodness. First and foremost, I feel really bad here for Jamahal Hill. Like, of all injuries to happen, this happens at a basketball game. It doesn't even happen in training. It doesn't happen. He's preparing for a fight. Just some unfortunate luck when it really boils down to it. We're going to read what Jamahal says here. His videos here, you could watch that as well, but I'll just read the statement he made. It says, I have unfortunately suffered an injury. I've ruptured my Achilles tendon. It's just one of those things that's happened. That happens. It's a rough injury. It's one that will require surgery and will require time and rehab and things for me to be out for a while. Also with that, I was given an opportunity. I was given a blessing that came from the misfortune of someone else. Yuri Prochazka was the champion. He suffered an injury. As these things happen, he gave up the belt and allowed for others not to hold up the division, to keep the division moving forward, to keep entertaining, to make sure that people had a champion. I'll do the same. Right now, the biggest thing is focusing on my recovery, focusing on getting back to 100%. I need to take some time to focus on my health and make sure that I am 100%. Here, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. And that I'm the fighter that everyone knows who I am and I've been since I stepped into this. In order to do that, I need to focus on healing and get ready for rehabbing. So first and foremost, let's give some props to Jamahal Hill. There's going to be people talking smack about this. Oh, what were you doing playing basketball? Like, it's going to happen. You know, it's not like this guy was doing like, wakeboarding and like hit a wave and hurt himself that way. Like, he's playing basketball. It's an unfortunate accident. It happens. It's just like a freak thing. First and foremost, you got to give props to Jamahal Hill for doing this. He's doing what basically Yuri did. He's not tying up the division. He's not saying, hey, listen, I'm going to keep my belt and then I'll come back and defend it. He did the honorable thing here. So we got to give Jamahal some credit, first and foremost. I think sort of the obvious thing now is what's going to happen next. Yuri, it seems like he's ready to come back and fight. I mean, I think this goes without saying, but the fight between Jan Blachowicz and Alexander Rakic should be a number one contenders fight at this point. So that fight's coming up later this month. We got Blachowicz and Alex Pereira. We already know Pereira's got a lot of momentum, being the former middleweight champion. Jan's the former light heavyweight champion. This fight just got even bigger. And even when I interviewed Jan, he sort of made it out like this was going to be a number one contenders fight anyways, because, just right now, this is sort of the highest ranked fight they have. So you've got that fight. You've got obviously Pereira and Blachowicz. There's that whole angle of Pereira being, to share his teammate. And then Blachowicz, it's like this is basically his last shot at a title, right? He had his opportunity against Ankalaev that ends up being a draw. So now he has this big opportunity against Pereira. So Jan's really got to do this. And for Pereira, I mean, if he wins, he's right back in the saddle of where he was at middleweight since losing his title. So really big thing there. And then obviously Yuri Prochazka, we know, vacated his title. He is going to come back and fight the winner of this. So here's the weird thing, though. Like, I mean, this is why, the light heavyweight division, I think, is cursed, right? Because Yuri vacates his title and you think, okay, good stuff. We're not going to hold up the division. They have the vacant title fight earlier this year. And then you think there's probably going to be a fight in between when Yuri comes back, but they don't. What the UFC did instead was they held out for a Jamahal Hill and Yuri fight. And I get it from that perspective 100% because that's a really exciting fight. Can you imagine Jamahal Hill and Yuri Prochazka? Like, that is an amazing fight, which unfortunately may not happen now, if the timing doesn't work out, so to speak. I'll talk about that in a sec, but they were holding out for that. I mean, realistically, if you're going by merit, if you're going by, keeping the division moving and treating this more as a sport than an entertainment, Jamahal Hill realistically should have fought Magomed Ankalaev. Like, I don't know what's going on with Ankalaev right now. I don't know why this guy, we haven't heard a word from him, no media, no nothing. I don't even know where he is. I don't think he's in Vegas. I think he's back home training here. But, as far as I'm concerned, and a lot of other people are concerned, he won that fight against Jan Blachowicz. I know it wasn't a pretty fight, but I think you could definitely make an argument that he did enough to win that fight. So I don't know where he is in all this. If he's watching right now, he's got to be like, what's going on? I also thought maybe they would do Ankalaev and Yuri Prochazka next. Maybe that's still an option. But the more appealing, more entertaining option here is doing Blachowicz and Pereira. So if I had to predict right now, and again, the time we're recording this is 5:40 a.m. Pacific time. It's early here. I think they will go with Pereira and Blachowicz, especially since that fight's coming up. So I think that's sort of the biggest option here as far as what the UFC can do in terms of matchmaking. Another thing I'll mention, and I think this goes without saying, but have to mention it anyways, when Hill is ready to come back, when he is healed, 100% he's got to get the next title shot, right? Like, whoever the champion is, whether it's Yuri or someone else, he needs to get this fight for sure. I think that goes without saying. just because he didn't lose the belt. You know, he had an injury, right? So I know sometimes it's weird when fighters vacate their titles. What are they going to do? I think in this case for sure that Hill should immediately get a shot. I know that sounds like an obvious thing, but had to point that out anyways. And then as far as again, Ankalaev, because I do think we need to talk about him as where he fits in the division. Is Rakic seems like the fight, right? Like who else doesn't have a fight book? Maybe Johnny Walker. Right, just sort of looking at the rankings right now, you've got so obviously got Hill as the champ, so he's out. He comes down. Yuri, so the title's going to be vacant. Yuri will still be, I guess, Yuri will be number 1. Jamal would technically be number 2, and then it bumps everyone down. Like, how does this work with the rankings? Like, someone's got to get booted out now because Hill is the title's going to be vacant, right? So, so you got Ankalaev at number 2. Yeah, I think Ankalaev and Rakic is the fight to make, right? Let me know if you think otherwise, but I just think rankings wise, it makes a lot of sense. Walker can fight Krylov. We already know Smith's is rematching Span, Ozdemir's booked up, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's sort of the best move here for the UFC, and then wait till Hill comes back. But yeah, it's just crazy because, like, you know, had Yuri not vacated his title, they probably could have done an interim title anyways. And then, like, let's say Hill and Glover was an interim title fight, and then, you know, like, kind of looking back now, like, it's just crazy for Yuri that he vacates the title thinking there's not going to be much activity, and now there's still going to be no activity, right? And I guess the only bummer here is that we're going to have to wait even longer to see Yuri defend that title. I think had Hill and him been healthy, even though we had heard that Hill and Yuri was close to happening, it's probably going to be even longer now, because who knows what's going to happen in this Blachowicz and Pereira fight, right? I guess that's another thing we can quickly talk about here. So let's say for some reason Blachowicz and Pereira, you know, they end up getting in some war and there's like a major injury in that fight. Let's hope there isn't, knock on wood. I'm just saying it's a possibility. It's a fight. Anything can happen here. But it's one of those things where I think if that happens, if you know, let's say there's going to be some long delay from this fight, from the winner of this fight between Blachowicz and Pereira, if there's some sort of, like, you know, injury or something that's happened there, then I think you got to give Ankalaev the title shot. That's what I feel. I know the UFC, I mean, saying that the UFC does not seem very high on Ankalaev. I think there's a reason that they have not announced his next fight, or they haven't booked him. There's a reason that Jan Blachowicz got to fight Alex Pereira instead of Ankalaev. Like, isn't it kind of weird that way? Ankalaev probably won that fight. You know, but I think again, they're going with the style matchup, because I think Ankalaev would have a better chance to beat Pereira than Blachowicz would, personally. So I think in some ways they're kind of keeping Ankalaev on the sidelines and kind of putting him as an afterthought. And like I said, I think he'll end up fighting Rakic. But yeah, most likely what's going to happen, you're going to have a winner in this fight, Pereira and Blachowicz. It's only 3 rounds, so it's not like they're going to, I mean, unless there's like a crazy injury in this fight, which I don't think will happen within 3 rounds, they're most likely going to fight Yuri next. I think regardless, like, because these are 2 non-American fighters, I think you got to do Yuri against the winner of this fight in Europe. Like, that's huge. Or somewhere internationally. I think that's the move here if you're the UFC, as opposed to doing this maybe in Vegas or something. So look, I think the big winner here is Yuri Prochazka. There's no rush for him to come back. Like, he had a pretty serious injury, right? So much so that he felt he needed to vacate the title. I think there was probably pressure on him for him to come back a little bit earlier and defend his title. So if anything, we're going to get a better Yuri fight, and we'll know that he's 100%, because he does not need to rush back now with Hill out. They can take their time in this Blachowicz and Pereira fight, and like I said, they can figure out what they want to do with Ankalaev. So if I had to predict, Yuri's going to fight the winner of Pereira and Blachowicz, and it'll probably be next year if I had to guess, because I don't think there's any reason to rush this. Maybe they do it in December, but I mean, because they do need a main event for that Vegas pay-per-view. Maybe that's the option there. And then, like I said, I think Ankalaev will end up fighting Rakic. That's just my prediction there. So we will see what happens. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Who do you think should fight for the vacant title at this point? I mean, obviously Yuri's going to be involved in it no matter what, but do you think it should be Pereira and Blachowicz? Do you think it should be Ankalaev? Let me know, honestly. Like, I think Ankalaev is a case here, but you know, we know how the UFC does their matchmaking. It goes with the more entertaining option here, and I think that is Blachowicz and Alex Pereira. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @LynchOnSports. I'm James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.